These people aren't happy. Dog fix.
This podcast is not suitable for children or those who are easily disturbed. Spoiler warning for whatever is in the title of this episode.
And now for the obligatory socials. Please like, share and subscribe. Follow Daniel at DStarSick on Twitter.
I have a talking dog best friend.
Follow Ryan at Darth Damio on the Bluebird app.
He's like a Catholic Dr. Dolittle.
You can find the podcast on Twitter at HorrorPod69. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Slasher and Goodreads.
If it was a cat, we would have liked it more.
Become part of the Disturbed community by asking for the Facebook group and Discord links. Send dick pics to the Horror of Babylon podcast at gmail.com. Support the show at patreon.com/The Horror of Babylon. In closing, you can let your friends know that The Horror of Babylon is available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible and all other major podcast apps.
Welcome to episode 66 of the Horror of Babylon, where we are discussing E.T. with a Dog, otherwise known as Watchers, by Dean Koontz. I am Ryan, and with me as always is Daniel. Say hi, Daniel.
Hi, Daniel.
And this show is brought to you by our patrons, Abigail the First, Breaker of Chains, Mother of Dragons, and
Logan,
the Full Metal Patron, and for Horsemen Comics and Gaming, which you can visit at the Morgantown Mall in Morgantown, West Virginia, or the Mall at Robinson in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And that is ran by Ronald III, the true Grampus of Christmas.
Stop and get yourself a pull list or play some Magic on Fridays.
Yes.
Or whenever they have Magic events.
Definitely on Friday.
Yeah.
I think more than that, but definitely on Friday. Wizards hasn't killed the local game store yet. They're trying.
They're trying pretty hard.
They're trying. Okay, so trigger warnings. This book and our discussion will be centered around sexual assault,
Animal cruelty,
murder, and violence.
And psychological abuse and gaslighting.
I'm more into electric lighting myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's not true. I have
propane and propane accessories.
Okay. This is a new novel for us, so Daniel, tell me, what is your history with Watchers?
I read the back of the DVD years ago and didn't know it was based off of a book. And then when people were telling me about the book and how it's like Dean Koontz's best book, I was like, oh, it's that movie that I once took off of my stepdad's shelf but never watched.
Yes, it is. I knew about it only in passing, that it's commonly considered to be his best book. I didn't even know for sure that it was horror until recently, and I knew it had to do with a dog. Other than that, I didn't know anything about the premise. I went in totally blank, not knowing anything about this except dog. To be fair, the dog is like front and center. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not a spoiler that there is a dog. There is a dog.
The vampire's a pure myth, superstition. I may be able to bring you proof that the superstition of yesterday can become the scientific reality of today.
Now, we're not going to go over like our full history with Dean Koontz. This is our third Dean Koontz book. Yeah. We've also covered Phantoms and the Bone Farm, so you can go back in our catalog and listen to those episodes. In our Phantoms episode, we did a kind of a detailed history. Just on the quick, this is my fifth Dean Koontz book, so I'm starting to get Koontz literate, I would say. Yeah. I think I've even made references to like specific Koontz things when I like type stuff for this outline. Mm-hmm. Yeah, his first novel was Star Quest, published in 1968. I still haven't read that one. Star Quest. Is that like a sci-fi fantasy kind of book? You know, I honestly don't know. Well, let's look it up real quick, because I didn't know that, nor have I ever heard of that one. Star Quest. Sounds like an RPG I would play. And in a universe that has been ravaged by 1,000 years of interplanetary warfare between the star-shattering Romagans and the equally voracious... review this. I think we have to.
Cetaceans.
There seemed now but one thing that might bring the destruction to an end. That would be the right catalyst in the hands of the right people. I'm like, this looks like a Romulan. It's a Romugan.
It is the most pulp-looking science fiction cover I think I've ever seen.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Definitely Google StarQuest Dean Koontz.
That's not what I was expecting.
It's Dean R. Koontz.
When did he drop the R?
I don't know. I wonder if he wanted to be a sci-fi writer and then just kind of fell into like thriller and horror because that's what he was more successful with.
Oh my god. I might be becoming Dean Koontz because I want to write science fiction. I'm just not smart enough.
Well, he tried, though, at least.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's cool. In 2008, he was the world's 6th most highly paid author, tied with John Grisham at $25 million annually. Holy God.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah, I had to double check that number, and yeah, that's the number.
Watchers was published in 1987, and it has spawned a series of low-budget horror movies, 4, I believe.
Yep, 4 films.
Yeah.
There was almost nothing on Wikipedia when I was doing research for this. Almost everything that I got, like search-wise, came from the audiobook afterward, read by Dean Koontz. In that he told me, because Wikipedia didn't, that the book has sold 11 million copies and has remained in print for 32 years. And it was featured in PBS's Great American Reads program, Top 100 Books. So that's a little bit high praise, a little bit of success for a book.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of used to Stephen King, where literally all of his books are still in print, except for Rage, which he pulled from printing. But like for any author to have a single book in print for that long is a huge accomplishment.
And that's that. Another story in the classic, infallible 3-act structure. Good enough for Aristotle, good enough for The Simpsons.
Mr. Sislak, I have a feeling there's going to be one more act to this story.
Well, I'm not hanging around for that. 4 acts.
Structure and themes. This is a chronological book from a third-person omniscient narrator, shifting between character perspectives.
There's a lot of themes. Yeah. It felt like this book wanted to say a lot.
It did. Did you have any thoughts on the structure?
It's pretty standard from what I expect from most thriller horror books. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I'll be lucky and I'll get a journal entry book, or I'll get something like It that like kind of travels
everything.
Yeah, travels back and forth in time and has journal entries, and this is kind of standard from what I expect. It's definitely what I come to expect from most Dean Koontz books.
The only thing that was kind of different of the ones that I've read was Bone Farm, which was mostly like in flashbacks from a journal.
Yeah, I actually kind of liked that.
Yeah, I did too. Where in the present stuff was in a frame narrative and was the less interesting part of the book. You're like, go back to the journal. Let's jump on themes, and depression is what you have first on the list, and that's really like the first kind of thing that comes up in the book.
It's kind of like takes a hammer of depression and goes, these people aren't happy, dog fix.
I mean, yes, you have an unhappy man, an unhappy woman, and the dog fixes it.
The dog fixes
it.
Next, I have what I have labeled Dean Koontz optimism, because literally this guy gets this dog, and he's like, wait a minute, life ain't so bad. I have a talking dog best friend.
I'll take that as an opportunity to throw up the first of my criticisms.
Yeah.
I feel like Travis's arc, or what I felt like should be his arc, is basically like done by like chapter 2 or 3.
I feel like he, especially with like how he was set up to be, I feel like he could have stretched that out a little bit further.
But it's just like, okay, we spend like the first chapter establishing this guy who's afraid of losing people close to him, rightfully so, because he's lost both his parents, his brother, and all of his squad mates.
And his wife.
And it's like, okay, this guy's had a rough life. He deserves to be sad.
He wants to eat Oreos and shoot rattlesnakes.
But literally, I don't remember if it's chapter like 2 or 3, but like within the first 100 pages of the book, he says like, and the dog fixed me. And then there's no like growth for the character like anywhere throughout the rest of the book.
Yeah, he's dog fix.
Dog fix. Apparently, I just need to get a dog, and my life will be perfect.
I've had some, like, in the past, I've had rough days, and my dogs or my cats have just instantly made me feel better. They haven't fixed what was written to be almost clinical depression.
Yeah.
I like the scene, because the dog's just looking at him with sad puppy dog eyes. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, he's looking at me, and it's like, almost like he's asking me why. Why are you sad?
Why are you sad?
Man,
life is good.
No one's ever asked me that before, buddy. I honestly really liked that scene, but it was kind of just done there.
I did. I really like that portion of the book. He's essentially the protagonist. He and Nora are the protagonists, and then it's just like there's no more growth for him throughout the rest of the like 500 pages of the book.
This isn't even like a counterpoint coming from me. The only thing that I could see as someone like reading it as the book is about his struggle to not fall back into that, because that keeps coming back up where he thinks the jinx is coming back. But it doesn't do too much with that, at least not in my opinion.
Just like right at the end.
Yeah.
Which I don't want to jump into that yet, but yeah.
We'll get there.
I mean, that's a fair point, though. Okay, sexual repression.
Yeah, that's Nora's character for the first quarter of the book, is she's been sexually and socially repressed, doesn't know how to interact with other people. Mm-hmm. Her aunt convinces her that men only want pretty girls, and to cover her up,
to disguise herself as a drab
old maid.
Old maid, yeah.
Yeah. They used a different phrase in the book, and now I can't remember it.
It's not like church marm. What's the term for like a woman who's too old to get married? Spinster. That's the word I was thinking of, but I don't think that's the word they used.
I can't believe I thought that.
That's essentially what she was on her way to becoming.
Yeah. There's not a lot of that, but it's just one of those little things that I'm sort of picking up on.
It's funny because when I read this, my first thought actually went to Vince, not Nora. Obviously, it's true.
It's also there for Vince.
Yeah.
I didn't get that for Vince until I was almost halfway through the book. Mm-hmm. I picked because I posted these in the order that I wrote them down.
Okay. Intelligence and how it relates to being human, which is an important theme for a book about an animal with human intelligence.
It comes up a lot, like especially when it comes to like the pet master dynamic. Mm-hmm. And how Einstein even sort of struggles against that sort of labeling, because
he explicitly tells Travis at one point, "You're not my master, you're just my friend." And Travis makes a joke at one point saying maybe I should be wearing the leash and he should be holding it.
Yes.
Like if you think about it, like two beings are in a relationship and one has to be the master and one has to be the pet, why would the less intelligent one be the master?
Yeah. Cat and mice, and that really just comes down to the nature versus nurture themes of the book. Mm-hmm. It's really expressed with like how Nora was brought up, mm-hmm. versus how I think I wrote her down as being like an ugly duckling story.
Yeah.
Versus how she really is. And then you also get it with the dog and the outsider, which I still, after I read your notes, I'm like, yeah, he should have called it the Watcher.
The entire time I'm listening to the book, anytime I was like making notes or thinking to myself in my head, I kept calling it the Watcher. Like
whenever we finally get our title drop for what the Watchers are, I'm like, really? That's what it is. Well, that's the title drop. We watch over each other,
and then they did it again in the epilogue. Yeah. Yeah. No, I really thought that the outsider should be the Watcher, because he's always watching you. I don't know, but
something like that. Yeah. That's what I was expecting whenever I was going into the book was Watchers were going to be the bad guys. I was thinking maybe even it was going to be, when I first was getting Vince's chapter, I was like, oh, I bet he's a secret agent trying to track down the dog.
Yeah, he's a Watcher.
Yeah, and that's who the Watchers are, just like these ruthless guys that are making hyper-intelligent dogs or something.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I was wrong.
Yeah. I was also wrong because I was thinking along the same lines. Yeah. It takes place during the 80s.
There's so much Cold War Russia stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and the Cold War is a very interesting time period, but, obviously we're at a point in time where anti-Russian sentiment is starting to grow again. Whenever I have conversations with people personally, and people are like, "Oh, Russia is so evil. Russians are so bad." I'm like, "Hey, Putin's evil. Putin's real bad. Let's focus the blame. There's normal people in that country too, just like you and me." And the timing in this book was a little awkward for me with all the anti-Russian stuff that's going on right now. Definitely, it was written in the 80s. It takes place in the 80s. All the Cold War stuff super makes sense.
Yeah. Utilitarian ethics. Now, this only comes up once, but it kind of underlies the entire point of some of the opposition characters, not quite the antagonists. But short-term versus long-term life saved by genetic engineering.
Then the cops were talking about how the value of the dog, the knowledge they would gain from genetic engineering, how many lives they could save in the future by creating corn that could grow in a desert, and versus the short-term loss of life by the outsider, running around the country pulling people's eyes out of their heads and stealing Mickey Mouse lamps.
This made me think of a episode of one of my favorite TV shows, Penn and Teller's Bullshit, where they talk about genetic engineering, and they bring up a specific...
He talks, not they, right?
Penn and Teller?
Yeah, only one of them talks, right?
Oh, okay, that's funny. You got me. Oh, where Penn Jillette talks about... there's this one specific dude whose genetic engineering did so much for food that it is estimated that he has saved 1 billion lives.
Oh my god.
And they emphasized, they were like, that's a billion with a B.
Oh my god.
Because they were, I don't know if you've seen Penn and Teller's Bullshit.
Nope.
Have you seen Adam Ruins Everything?
Nope.
Okay, well, Penn and Teller versus Bullshit is the good version of that show. Or I like to call it the entertaining version of that show. And you have a bunch of these people that are against genetically engineered foods, they're calling it Frankenstein foods. And they're like, "Oh, you don't know what that food's going to do to you." So they bring up this dude, and they show all these numbers about how he saved 1 billion lives, literally just by creating corn that can grow in places corn's not supposed to grow.
There was an episode of The Simpsons on genetically modified food, where they started providing it in the Springfield Element, and Lisa found out about it and immediately threw together a rally to oppose it, and she went up to the podium, and somebody said, "Tell us why it's bad, Lisa." And she went, "Actually, I don't know why. Give me 2 weeks. I'm going to research this." And then she threw another rally and said, "Actually, it's good." But yeah,
that's pretty funny. That's a good gag.
Yeah.
Mostly because there is this tendency to be reactionary, and they even talk about that, how if people find out we made a hyper-intelligent dog, they're not going to want us to do anything.
Yeah.
But if you sit there and you think about, the pros and the cons in the longer term, we created a funky-looking baboon that's murdering some people, but we might save 1 billion other lives.
Yeah.
I just thought it was an interesting talking point.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
Loyalty.
Yeah. Dogs are loyal.
They are. They really are.
Are you going to be... And who are you going to show your loyalty to is another big part of this book. You got someone like Vince who is only loyal to himself. Kind of gets him killed. You have people who show loyalty to each other because they believe it's the right thing to do. And because of Dean Koontz' optimism, they get their happy endings.
They do. And then racial expectations has to do with...
Liam.
Lem.
Yeah, Lem.
Lemuel
Johnson.
Lemuel Johnson, NSA.
His race is brought up a lot, actually.
A lot.
It has to do with his backstory, where his father drilled into him, because you're black, you're going to have to work twice as hard, and you still are expected to fail.
Yeah.
And it's made him, I forget the word that Wikipedia used.
You had it down here in the...
Yeah.
There's a word.
Yeah.
Failure phobic.
Yeah, I could... It's the extreme fear of failure or something like that.
To the point where he's like ruining his life. Yeah. Aticophobia.
Aticophobia. Okay, so it's not
hard.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Aticophobia. Yeah, aticophobia.
Where were we at?
And then I think, to me, like, the biggest theme, or at least it's what I focused on the most, is because I spent the majority of this book comparing it to Frankenstein.
It invites that comparison, I feel.
It does. Playing God and the responsibility that comes with that. It was shocking to me, like, how few characters were actually... Like, I expected more characters to be against genetic manipulation in this book, but none of them really are.
No, they're just like, no, this is just kind of a bad consequence of it, but we got the dog, and dog fixed.
Yeah, there weren't really a whole lot of opposing viewpoints on that. Even, like, when the two cops are discussing it, the one is initially against it and then comes around to the other side, like, really fast.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you're right.
I like to think of this as the book where Frankenstein tries to take responsibility.
It would have been like if Victor kept the creature and was trying to teach the creature, and then the creature decided to escape, and then Frankenstein tried to find the creature.
This is the version where he's made two creatures, and one of them is accepted, and Victor goes, well, okay, this one that's killing people, I'm just going to put together a posse of and take care of it because it's my fault.
Yeah.
So, so this was in the afterword.
Yeah.
Dean Koontz says, we carry in us the divine moral imperative of love. And he says that is the main theme of the book. Ryan, what are your thoughts on that?
Are you asking, is this the theme, or what are my thoughts on the divine moral imperative of love?
I'm asking you, what do you think of Dean Koontz saying that is the main theme of this book? I did not get that reading this book, but I also did not write the book.
Yeah, I mean, it goes along with the whole Watchers theme. Like, I think Nora goes on this rant towards the end of the book where, my job is to love you, Einstein, and Einstein, your job is to love me, and I'll also love Travis, and Travis will love you, and you love Travis, and that's the whole point. We're a family, and we're meant to watch over each other. So yeah, like I think I got that theme.
Okay.
I mean, that was like the dog brought them together, and then they formed this like three-way relationship, and
they were polyamorous with the dog.
No, in fact, they bought a trailer just so that they could have sex in a different room from the dog.
Yeah.
I was like, just do it in front of the dog. Jesus.
Yeah, he could be your little dog cock.
Don't be snotty. Just wait till he goes to sleep. Jeez.
I promise I'll be quiet, Nora.
We'll just put a blanket over its head. He won't know.
Is that the most fucked up joke we've made? Probably not. But
no, not even close.
It's still funny.
But yeah, no, I think that theme fits the book pretty well. I don't know how much I like it, but
I think it fits. I really got more of the whole playing God thing as the main theme.
That was the theme that I focused on the most.
Yeah, but again, I didn't write the book, so I don't get to say what its main theme is.
Perspective may also be colored by how much Frankenstein we just digested. Mm-hmm. So that's what I was really focusing on. And just some general thoughts. And I'm going to kind of walk you through me reading this book. So again, like, I went through this like knowing nothing essentially.
Yes.
And I read the first chapter, and if you haven't read this, basically in the first chapter, our main character Travis is really sad. He goes to the desert to murder rattlesnakes, which I don't like, but okay, we'll set that aside for now. While there, he finds a dog that prevents him from going down a deer path, and the deer, because there's something there that wants to kill them. So he takes the dog and he leaves. And that description doesn't sound great, but it's written really well.
Yeah, I think this has a super strong opening.
Yes, I read that first chapter, and I was like, wow, that was awesome. I can already tell this book is going to be better than Phantoms, better than the Boneyard. This is going to be the best. I can already tell like why people say this is the best Dean Koontz book. And then it got to Nora and her harassment by Arthur Schreck. I'm like, this is legitimately scary. This is terrifying. He does a really good job explaining Nora's background and why she is the way she is, and it makes total sense that she would fall victim to a guy like this. And then, stuff happens. Nora and Travis meet. The dog brings them together. It's this really cute, like, romantic story. And that we get to the second half of the book. The first half of the book ends with a confrontation with the outsider. After the first half, it just really drags for me. I feel like most of the characters' arcs are wrapped up by the first appearance of the outsider. Like, as we talked about earlier, Travis's whole thing is that he's afraid of losing his loved ones, but this dog teaches him to appreciate life. That kind of wraps up his arc. Nora's is that she, like you said, she's repressed. She can't socialize with people, but Travis and the dog bring her out of that to the point where she's actually, gets married. And by the middle point of the book, her arc basically comes full circle because she gets married and joins a family and blah blah blah. So like our two main characters, their stories are basically wrapped up, and then they meet the final boss in the middle of the book, and they escape him, and then everything from there to the end is just like them running from 3 different adversaries: the outsider, the cops, and Vince, who they don't know about. And it's just details, just stuff that happens, nothing that really contributes to the story. What actually happens at the end of the book, the final confrontation between Travis, Nora, Einstein, and the outsider, could have just happened the first time they met at Travis's house and had the exact same outcome. I really think the second half of this book just drug it down really hard for me. I got really bored, had a lot of trouble paying attention with it, and maybe it's worse for me because I love the first half of the book.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, this is so good. This is definitely going to be his best book. This is so great. And then it's just like, for me.
I almost feel like the second half of the book was written almost more like a spy thriller.
Mm-hmm.
And they kept referencing spy thrillers. And I love spy thrillers, but it almost... I don't want to say it came out of nowhere, because there was a lot of that sort of like, there's NSA guys going on,
mm-hmm.
and they've been referencing Russian since the beginning.
Yeah.
But it almost felt like he had an idea for some scenes, and so he wrote them.
So I feel like this book walks across 4 genres: science fiction, horror, thriller, and romance.
Yeah.
The first half of the book really involves the romance, horror, and science fiction aspects, and then the thriller's basically the whole second half. And that's the part I struggled with. Not that I don't like thriller, I do, but like I said, the thriller in the second half of this book isn't really tied to like the characters and their particular story arcs. It's just stuff that happens. It's them, running, getting fake personas. You spend a lot of time with the NSA agents in the second half of the book. You spend a lot of time with the lawyer, with the veterinarian, who could have almost been the same character.
The dog getting sick, I think, was when I got the most bored.
Mm-hmm.
And not because like a pet getting sick couldn't scare you.
Yeah.
But it's like I'm like, okay, of course the dog is getting sick because he kept ringing up the number in his ear.
Yeah.
So it has to happen. Only it didn't have to happen.
There wasn't any point in this book where I felt like Nora, Travis, or Einstein were in any real danger. I did not believe that Dean Koontz was going to kill any of these characters. And when you have a whole half of a book that's all thriller,
mm-hmm.
and I am not afraid for the characters at all, it doesn't work for me.
I was almost tricked, but we will get to that when I get to my king.
I was briefly tricked.
Is it the same thing? It's probably
I'm sure
same.
it is. But I figured it out pretty quick. I was briefly tricked.
I was like, I am so upset, but if he does this, this is the bravest book ever written.
Yeah, no, there's actually 2 points where I was tricked. I know which one you're talking about, and I'm going to get to the other one because
there's another one where I was tricked for a half a second. I was like, no, this is what's going on, and then that's what was going on. But we'll get.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Let's talk about characters. We're going to start with Travis Cornell, the ex-Special Forces, kind-hearted, depressed man who's full of snark and views himself as jinxed.
Yeah. It's not a bad description.
I mean, you wrote it.
Yeah. I know, that's why it's not bad. It's concise.
I had a harder time with Travis. I'll go ahead and say I really love Nora. I thought Travis was kind of boring. He's just like, guy is broken. And you said it best. Dog fixed guy, and dog, now he's fixed. Then woman make guy even more fixed.
I feel like I might have liked him more if he took longer to fix.
Yeah.
I'm even okay with dog fixing.
Mm-hmm.
Because the dog does, like, continuously, like, push the two characters together.
Yeah.
But the, like, main driving force, which was his depression, is almost instantly gone.
So, I'm not a big fan of dog stories.
Yeah, me either.
I think they're pretty overdone. Obviously, there are some really good ones out there.
I think it's just because of all the really good ones, and there's just so many of them.
With a typical dog story, you would start with, like, the protagonist resisting the dog, and then it's almost like a romantic comedy where they get together and they don't like each other, but slowly the dog starts to win them over, and then by the end of the story, the dog has fixed whatever they have.
Yeah.
Travis and Einstein had this all done by, like, chapter 2.
Yeah.
And it's just like...
I can even understand, like, I can almost understand why. You know what I mean? Einstein doesn't even try to hide it. He just sees how intelligent this dog is, and he's like, man, I gotta take this thing home.
I know.
This is the neatest... Because that's what I would do.
I would have also taken the dog home.
I understand why there wasn't as much as resistance as I'm used to in those sorts of stories.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that also led to a lot of conflict being resolved super quick. And you can have a character that doesn't have growth in a story.
Mm-hmm.
There are flat characters that exist in interesting stories.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say that I think that he was, for the most part, just pretty consistent in what he was.
He was.
Which was a kind-hearted but full of snark man.
Travis is a libertarian.
You think so?
Definitely think so.
Wow.
I rolled my eyes so hard that I hurt the front of my brain. When he's like, eventually, technology will lead to the need that we don't need government anymore.
I wish. Buddy, I heard that and I was like, buddy, libertarians today believe technology is going to lead to a one-world government.
But yeah, I was just like, okay.
He does strike me as a dude that if he would have been born a couple decades later, instead of like real estate, he would have made his money doing crypto.
I kind of pictured him as, like, starting, like, his own, like, community militia in his backyard.
I didn't picture that.
I did. But like I told you earlier, I had a pretty negative coloring of Travis because of the fact that he was going out to the desert to shoot innocent rattlesnakes.
I also didn't care for that. I think that might be, like, a generational thing on our part.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are people, even today, that still just kind of view snakes as pests.
Mm-hmm.
Like how you would view, like, a bunch of insects in your house. You get a giant brood of rattlesnakes, they're a pest, you just want to get rid of them. But
if one was in my house, I might kill it.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to go to its home and kill it.
Yeah. To be fair, though, he saw it and he was like, man, I can't even pull the trigger.
Yeah, which is true.
He's like, man, this isn't what I should be doing. I should be getting a dog so I can fix.
So here's a story from that I've always remembered. When I was a young kid, I don't remember how old, but my dad came back from drinking beers with one of our neighbors, and he was, like, bothered, and my mom asked him why. He's like, they go into their barn and with a shotgun and they just shoot bats for fun. And I can't be around when they're doing that, and they won't stop doing that. So I left. I'm like, yeah, like why? Like obviously people go hunting and fishing for fun, and regardless of what you think of hunting and fishing, there are conservation reasons for those activities. But what is the point to going into your barn and just popping 12 gauge shots at defenseless bats? It's just to feed your own sick, sadistic desires. Like it's disgusting.
There's just this character archetype that you and I just cannot get on board with, and that's the, I guess, like, traditional redneck, I want to go pop off some shots at some squirrels type of people. Like,
yeah,
like, I don't hate people that hunt, especially if you're going to use the parts.
No, I mean, I've grown up around hunting. I've eaten as much deer as beef in my life almost.
And you know, I eat meat, so I'm not going to knock people who hunt to make pelts or get food. But whenever I hear people like, I'm just going to go like practice shooting my gun at some squirrels, I'm like, why?
Well, I always think about back to indigenous people who kill animals for a reason, and then they give thanks for it. Like if it's part of a practice to curb a population so that these animals don't die out during the winter, because we as humans have killed or driven off all the predators that would have kept their numbers under control, that makes sense. If you're, hunting to get food for your family, that makes sense. If you're killing an animal in self-defense, that makes sense. But if you're doing it for pure fun, or if you're doing it to sight in your gun, or if you're doing it because you secretly have a need for violence, and this is the most socially acceptable way for you to feed that need, then play a fucking video game.
That's what I do.
Yeah.
I like to believe that Travis got the dog because he didn't shoot that snake.
Yeah. That makes me feel a little bit better about the character. And
because that would have scared the dog away.
What you said about the generational thing is our generation is the first generation that's had video games readily available from a young age.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why we're more balanced about these sorts of things, is because
I could shoot people online.
I know.
I don't need to go shoot squirrels.
You've said in previous episodes that I usually go take a pretty dark path when I play a video game.
I feel bad when I do it.
Here's the thing is, I'm not going to criticize somebody for having like a baser instinct to do something violent. It's just about how you channel it.
Yeah, I mean, based off of my fucking hentai tags, I guess I can't say anything.
Okay. I think
that's fucked up.
We've beat up Travis enough.
Let's beat on Nora a little bit.
Okay, so your description of Nora: mouse, painter, proves to be adaptable, ugly duckling story.
Yeah, that's the impression I got from her entire character arc.
I preferred Travis. Or, I did not. I preferred Nora a lot more.
Yeah.
She, to me, well, one, her character arc is throughout the entire first half of the book rather than up to chapter 2. The situation she finds herself in with Arthur Streck was legitimately scary. That portion of this book scared me more than, I don't know. I can't remember the last time we read a book that scared me that much.
It was very unsettling. And there was even like a point, and it didn't last very long.
Mm-hmm.
Because the dude makes his like intentions super clear, super quick.
Yeah.
Where I was going, how much of this is just in her head because of the way she's been raised?
Mm-hmm.
Turns out none of it.
None of it, yeah.
But the book tricks you into even questioning her. I think that's on purpose.
She rationalizes it to herself, and you as the reader are not sure.
And I'm like, man, yeah, is this just her being like a little nervous?
Mm-hmm.
And then he calls her and says, I couldn't find this police.
It's like, oh no.
I was like,
oh no. Even though nothing ends up happening, well, he assaults her.
Yeah.
But he doesn't rape her, he doesn't murder her. But still, like, the tension for, like, waiting for something to happen. Every time he calls her, or when she randomly runs into him in the park, like, I could feel the tension. It was scary to me. And then, of course, you know, like we said, she's been socially suppressed by her aunt her whole life. And then her arc is that the dog saves her from Shrek and brings her and Travis together. And Travis and the dog bring her out of her shell. And she has to learn to, you know, appreciate herself and have some self-respect and get some self-confidence before, you know, she can really, like, start a relationship with Travis. So he kind of starts as her friend and brings her out of her shell, and then it transitions into something more romantic, and then it transitions into something sexual. They have a romantic relationship before they have a sexual relationship. And so she really has this nice fleshed out arc throughout the first half of the book, while we're kind of building, like, what's going on with Einstein and the outsider.
Yeah.
And that by the middle of the book, it's more or less wrapped up. It's like, oh, okay, now she's her own person. She's the person she wants to be. She's married. She has a good guy. Here's where I got super upset. And if I was reading a physical book, I may have thrown it out a window. We get through this whole, like, second half of the book, which I am not enjoying. And the whole, like, second half of the book, we're basically just waiting for either the cops, Vince, or the outsider, or all three, to catch up with Travis, Nora, and Einstein.
Yeah.
The whole second half of the book is just waiting for that shoe to drop. Finally, one of them drops, and it's Vince, the assassin, who we haven't talked about yet, but we'll get to next. And he grabs Nora on her way out of a doctor's appointment, you know, puts her in the car, puts a gun to her, and says, drive to your house. We're going to kill everybody. She stays calm. She, like, okay, pretend to be scared, or show him that you're scared, but stay calm. Lull him into a false sense of security. Make him think you're weak, a weak woman, and wait. Just wait for your opportunity. They get to her house. He gets out the passenger side door and is dragging her across the seat out the door. Then bam, she pops open the glove compartment, pulls out her gun, and without a single hesitation puts 3 bullets in his stomach, and then he looks at her and she shoots him in the chest without hesitation. At that point, I stop listening to the book because I'm going off in my head. This is awesome. This is perfect. It's a perfect circle. Her story starts with being harassed by this terrible man who she has to be saved by. Mm-hmm. She's saved by Einstein and Travis. And then her story ends being harassed by this terrible man, and she fucking saves herself. This is so fucking sweet. It makes up for the terrible second half. Wait, bulletproof vest? Did I hear that right? Rewind. Oh my god, he had a bulletproof vest. She didn't kill him. Okay, well, that doesn't mean that she isn't going to get him. It doesn't mean she's not going to kick him in the face and take him down. Oh, Travis said some stupid cheesy line and shot him.
This book was written in the 80s.
I was very disappointed. It would have been such a great parallel to have her end Vince the way she couldn't have ended Arthur Schreck. It would have been like her getting to get that final achievement, that gold medal right at the end. Like, you did it. You're a woman. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I was mad.
I'm sorry. I was not as upset. This was the first time I was almost tricked. I was like, oh, wait, no, he's probably got a bulletproof vest on.
Yeah.
Because that was, like, my first thought. I mean, I also thought most bulletproof vests, if you shoot them more than a couple of times, the vest breaks.
Mm-hmm.
I guess he could have had, like, a super high-end one. At the same time, that probably broke every rib in his body, so...
She did it what seemed like point-blank range, and
that also makes a difference.
Yeah.
But this is me taking too much of, like, real-world physics that I know.
This is also about a dog that can talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
But I was just like, I almost... Because, like, when I was first listening to the scene, I was expecting her to have a cheesy one-liner.
Yeah. Which I would have been okay with.
I would have been like... This is what I pictured her doing.
Mm-hmm.
You said this is probably going to tell you how terrible of a writer I am, Ryan. I expected her to go up to, like, him, like, bleeding out and go, Did you feel that snap? Yeah. Because he directly uses that phrase to her.
Yeah.
I felt the snap. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, I was that's what I wanted, and that's probably what I would have written because I am fucking corny as hell.
I prefer that than what we got.
Yeah. Well, then you will probably like the one female character in my book.
Good. Is her name Token?
Tabitha.
Oh, I see what you did there. But yeah, I mean, overall, I thought Nora was a bright spot that I think that the book could have treated her better.
I do have one question.
Okay.
What is my type and why is it Nora?
I don't know, but my type is Nora too.
Yeah. We have similar taste.
Yeah.
So.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Vince.
I have a couple of thoughts on Vince.
Go for it.
With the exception of Bone Farm, because Bone Farm is about this person, every Dean Koontz book that I have read and that we have read involves one just really sort of fucked up evil guy doing fucked up and evil shit.
Yep.
Because Dean Koontz wants to show, like, diametrically opposed good and evil.
Yep.
Yeah, Dean Koontz optimism versus Dean Koontz evil. For the most part, Vincent D'Asco does this. At the beginning of the book, it didn't bug me as much because it was kind of how you sort of discovered Bannadyne through Vince's eyes.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, that's going to be a weird way to tie this all in together. So I was sort of okay with it at first. But then we also get Arthur Streck, and I'm like, okay, so we have two of these Dean Koontz characters. And then we get all the stuff revealed, and I'm like, why do I still have to listen to the Vince chapters?
I know.
I would have, like, all the later Vince chapters where it's just him doing the investigating and, like, finding out where they are. Mm-hmm. I would have rather gotten more outsider stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I think that this character could have mostly been excised from the book.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't made much of a difference. Or at least some way to combine Vince and Arthur Streck into one character. I feel like this book had a lot of those issues, like the veterinarian and the lawyer who helped Travis and Nora. I felt like served very similar roles, and their character could have been written together somehow. Vince and Arthur the same way, and like all the various cops. Like
the only thing I can say in defense of like the lawyer and the veterinarian is when it comes to like like love being what people are all about. The theme of the book that Dean Koontz wants to get across is when people meet the dog, they side with the dog.
Yeah. And
so he wanted to give more examples of that.
That's true.
I still wasn't a fan of the whole veterinarian scene. Mostly just because I didn't for 1 second really believe they were going to kill the dog with... It wasn't cancer, but whatever the disease was.
Here's another thing. I think the second half of this book would have been more effective for me if they killed one of these tertiary allies.
Yeah.
Because nobody dies, and I know, like, I'm happy with I actually like the happy epilogue we get that's very optimistic and that they get to have a happy ending. I'm fine with that, but somebody should have died at some point during this book to make me believe that there were some stakes.
Yeah. I think the lawyer might have been a good choice. I expected Vince to, like, go kill the lawyer. Yeah. And that's how he was going to, like, find some stuff out.
I thought that the veterinarian might show up during the confrontation with Vince or the outsider and get killed.
Yeah.
I'm glad these people got to live, but it was less effective because I didn't believe that anybody could die.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I agree with you. I think the earlier parts with Vince, when you didn't really know what were going on, where he's just randomly killing people, and there's world building about Bannadyne and kind of slowly uncovering the mystery. Those were fine, but then just everything in the second half with him going to you get descriptions of multiple different assassinations he did. You get this long chapter where he goes to his informant. You get like 2 different instances of him going to see the mafia Don boss to ask for information, which none of it was entertaining. All of it was unnecessary. And it just adds to this second half of the book that is just filled with unnecessary detail. Do we need 200 pages of Travis and Nora getting fake IDs? No, but I don't know.
I'm sure there are probably a lot of people that actually really do enjoy that, especially just because of how popular the book is.
Yeah.
I think I'm more middling about it. Like, I wasn't as bothered as you were, but I wasn't hyped on it. I was like, I really just want to get back to The Outsider. I found its like growing intelligence fascinating and horrifying.
And we'll get to The Outsider soon, but I'll go ahead and say that of the various adversaries, the one that I cared about was The Outsider.
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy how much time we spent with the police.
Yeah.
It's similar to Vince, where it was just unnecessary and stuff we could have gotten fed to us in an easier way. The Outsider was what I wanted to know more about. The Outsider is what I wanted to spend more with. If we're going to have random interludes with one of these adversaries, I would have preferred it to be The Outsider. But I guess it could have, to play devil's advocate to myself, it could have also been a situation where he does too much with The Outsider and then it's not as scary, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it is a fine line to walk. And I guess the fact that we wanted it so much shows that he at least built some intrigue for it. But we'll get more to that here in a minute.
Okay, so the next character we have is Arthur Schreck. I feel like
Is a bad man.
Yeah, he's a bad man. I think we've said everything there is to be said about Arthur Schreck. And then Lemuel Johnson, who's he's the NSA agent. We talked about him in the systematic racism theme, about how he is motivated by his fear of failure. Okay, Delworth Garrison, you have as the sheriff.
I got my notes.
Lawyer.
Yeah, I got my notes mixed up.
Here's a great example. Like, all of these like tertiary characters, there's so many of them and they matter so little that you're mixing up the names.
I was mixing up names.
We spend so much time like getting background on the lawyer and the veterinarian and the 2 different cops. It's just like, I love world building, but your story isn't good enough for me to care this much.
I like that they called the lawyer a geriatric James Bond.
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah. And I did enjoy, like, he pulled one over on the NSA by hopping the boat.
As a libertarian, I love it when people pull one over on the NSA.
Yeah. And I'm just, I'm on the opposite end of the political spectrum from libertarians. I just don't like authority figures, be they federal agents or local police officers.
Yeah. Same. That's why we're still friends.
Yeah. The right and the left can hate cops equally. Okay.
That's funny.
I thought it was funny how the NSA agent was really not wanting to listen to him have sex with
man,
Ellie.
I don't want to hear them get it on. It'd be like listening to my grandparents.
Just do it.
You can listen to them wet kiss.
Gross. All right, let's talk about the last 2 characters that actually matter. Einstein and the Outsider. We'll start with the good boy.
He is a good boy. He drives the themes of the book.
What did you think about them teaching him to read and then him eventually being able to just talk through Scrabble tiles and eventually a computer?
I mean, I was fine with it. They sort of set up like the extreme high level of intelligence they were dealing with early on. And I kind of liked that it was a slow burn, that he wasn't automatically a genius dog. He was just he was intelligent and he was able to learn.
I love the first portion of the book with Einstein. And I feel like if someone had explained the premise of this book to me before I read it, I wouldn't have wanted to read it.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so it's about a dog that's genetically engineered to have the intelligence of a human. And he escapes from the lab. And somebody finds him and saves him, and it's them running from the research facility. And it's E.T. with a dog. And like, okay, that sounds... But the first half story between Travis and Nora and Einstein is pretty compelling.
There's not a lot of running.
No.
He's I got far enough away. It's good.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I got less into it during the second half where he's actually having full conversations with them. But I don't want to criticize it because I feel like if I criticize it, then I'm going to have to send Peter Jackson an apology letter for criticizing him for years about saying talking birds is the line.
That's the line.
So I'm going to say I'm on board with the talking dog.
Fiddle broke.
Fiddle broke. Oh, that was so sad.
I know I just criticized the veterinary scene, but like the way the dog communicated it was effective.
Yeah, like that was fine. I never thought that he would kill the dog.
Yeah.
And if I thought that there was any chance that Einstein would die, it would be in a confrontation with the outsider.
Yeah.
Maybe we should talk about that now.
The outsider is not a good boy, also drives the themes.
To me, the outsider is the opposite of what I typically look for in a horror monster, because normally I would say that I don't want it over-explained, I don't want too many details, I don't want to know every inch of this thing's past. But in this instance, I didn't think it was scary until, the first scene where Travis meets Einstein at the deer trail, I thought that was scary.
Yeah.
But then all the scenes where it runs into random people and rips them to shreds, I didn't really think was scary until they explained what it was for a couple reasons for me. One, I've always thought baboons were terrifying.
Baboons are terrifying.
Yeah.
You ever seen them scream?
Yeah.
Could you imagine one biting you?
No. Oh my God.
Now imagine one with a bigger head.
I think I saw in a YouTube video recently that they have enough bacteria in their mouth that a bite from them is lethal.
I've watched videos of a baboon. It captured a baby gazelle and ate it alive.
Oh my God.
It was not pleasant. I don't know why I watched that whole thing.
Aside from that, also just how sympathetic its story is.
Mickey Mouse.
I know, he didn't ask to be created. And, it's designed for war. And the reason, it has all this hatred is because of its sibling was designed for a peaceful reason and everybody loves because his sibling is beautiful, but he's ugly and nobody likes him and everybody's afraid of him and I want to take out their eyes so they can't look at me.
He's just intelligent enough to recognize the disparity between both of them.
Yeah.
And he's intelligent enough to communicate it. And I honestly wasn't finding it too scared because I'm like, it's a big animal.
Mm-hmm.
I have a shotgun in my house. I can shoot a big animal.
Yeah.
When he is screaming, "Rip out your eyes," or signing it, because I listened to it on audiobook.
I did too. Props to the narrator. He did a very good job.
But I'm just imagining this hyper-intelligent animal telling me it wants to rip out everyone's eyes and its own eyes.
It's scary.
Yeah, I'm like, no, that's not great.
This is the only instance that I can think of where a villain or a monster is made scarier by the explanation.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, the Mickey Mouse thing, that it's one joy in life and that it's shared with Einstein is the few hours that they got to watch cartoons. And it's heartbreaking. It's obviously highly comparable to Frankenstein's creature.
Yeah.
I think it's even more sympathetic than the creature, only because it was created as an animal, as a not human. Whereas, when you and I had kind of an argument discussion during our Frankenstein episode where, we were discussing, is the monster bad? And we had this he didn't ask to be created and he did these bad things, but he did them for this reason. And we kind of had a back and forth about it. And it's essentially exactly the same thing with the outsider, except I feel like the outsider is more sympathetic purely it's based on a baboon and not a human, which I guess maybe says a lot about me, but
there's a certain childlike quality to it, especially when it comes to Mickey Mouse.
Mm-hmm.
And they mentioned specifically that they were trying to teach both the dog and the outsider the difference between what's real and what isn't. Mm-hmm. And the one fantasy that they had the hardest time letting go of was the talking animal.
Yeah. Because
that's what they relate to. They're like, well, no, I can communicate, so of course Mickey Mouse is real.
Yep.
And also, Einstein asked for Mickey Mouse cartoons for Christmas.
Oh.
Name baby Mickey. Name it Donald.
He got his mate was Minnie, though.
Yeah.
He got his Minnie. And then, kind of the clincher for me was during the epilogue where Travis is thinking to himself, like, did he not kill Einstein on purpose? Did he pull back at the last minute? Because he feels like if the outsider wanted to kill Einstein, then Einstein should probably be dead. So I'm choosing to believe that at the last minute, the outsider pulled back and decided not and recognized Einstein's right to exist.
I know Hollywood watches our podcast and listens to our podcast.
Or at least the Simpsons writers.
Because the Simpsons keep stealing our jokes. So, Hollywood producers, if you ever remake the Watchers film, just call the outsider the Watcher.
Yeah. Just get rid of the whole we watch each other thing.
Yeah. One easy writing credit for us.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Initially, when it happened, I thought it was really silly that Vince and the outsider attacked on the same day. Like, of course, they end up getting to the house on the same day. And then I realized, what if the outsider had been there for a while and was staking out their house and waiting for an opportunity to attack, and Vince showing up and causing chaos gave him that opportunity, and that's why he chose to attack on that day.
Especially because they established that whatever, I call it a psychic link because I don't know what else to call it, between Einstein and the outsider was messed up. The dog couldn't really tell anymore. So in my head, it was already in the house.
My thought was that it found the house at some point when they were at the vet and just kind of like made a camp.
Yeah.
And was just like waiting. It maybe it didn't even want to attack while Einstein was weakened because it wanted to fight him.
I picture it with like a little pair of binoculars.
Yeah. I think he dug out a little den. And I wanted to mention, like, the part where the cops find his den and are going through all his crap, I thought was spooky.
Yeah.
Like, he folded his blanket.
Yeah, that was an effective scene.
Yeah, that was great.
If the cop stuff would have been more stuff like that, I probably would have enjoyed it more.
I'll kill you all! I'll drive you crazy, and I'll kill you all! I'm every nightmare you ever had. I am your worst dream come true. I'm everything you ever were afraid of.
So let's go to scary shit. Okay, just in general, did you find this book scary?
Parts of it. I think Phantoms was way scarier.
I think Phantoms was scarier.
I think a lot of stuff that we read was way scarier, but there's more stuff in there that I find personally terrifying. Like I have Shrek on this list, and I can understand why someone would find him terrifying, but I, as a kind of in shape guy, don't have to deal with that a lot.
I thought Arthur Schreck was very scary, and there were parts of The Outsider that I thought were very scary, but on the whole, I didn't find it to be a very scary book.
Yeah.
And which is very disappointing for me because Arthur Schreck is right at the beginning, and because that part was so effective for me personally, I was kind of expecting the book to be scary, and it turned out it wasn't. So that hurt the book for me.
When I hear a book's popular, sometimes if I hear it's popular before I read it, I go in with a certain expectation, and then I'm trying to figure out why. And I think part of it might be because it's sort of lighthearted.
I think this book is as popular as it is because it's a dog book.
Yeah, it's a dog book.
I think it's that simple.
You think it's that simple?
I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad for liking this book, because there is a lot of good in this book, and there's a lot of reasons to like it. And I will say this up front. I'm sure this book is immensely more enjoyable if you're a dog person. I love dogs, but I don't have a dog because I can't have a dog, so I'm not like a dog person.
If it was a cat, we would have liked it more.
But I think this book is one of his more popular books because it appeals broadly to dog people and is kind of more on the tame end of horror. So this is something that you could recommend to somebody who's, just wants to dip their toe in horror, or is like, I don't really want to get into horror, but I want to read something that's kind of spooky. But I think it just has a much more broad appeal than the majority of the books that we've read.
Yeah, I can see that. Romance is like a really big emphasis in this book.
Yeah, and I think it's a pretty effective love story for the first part of it.
And romance has pretty broad appeal.
Yeah. And obviously there's a good amount of science fiction If you are into the whole like spy thriller thing, that's in there. Like it touches a lot of genres. So even though I'm not a big fan of this book, I can kind of see where the appeal for other people comes from. It's not something like Confederado where I'm just like, why would anyone enjoy this?
I can't wait until we discuss River of Teeth, because I'm sitting there listening to it and I'm like, this is just the good version of the Confederado. Yes.
I haven't started it yet. I'm trying to play.
I didn't know it was a Western.
Yeah. You should listen to those podcasts.
I'm going to closer to when we're going to review it.
And I made a YouTube playlist of YouTube videos about it too.
Okay.
One of my favorite historical events. I don't know. But yeah, it's really cool. I'm still excited at the idea of Western horror. Like horror in a Western setting, because like there's so many good like things in a Western setting, like sci-fi in a Western setting, like Star Wars and no way.
At the end of the day, I don't find the book that scary. Mm-hmm. And I think part of that's on me for going in thinking it was going to be scary, because I've been told it's the best Dean Koontz book. Dean Koontz likes to write a lot of things other than horror. Mm-hmm. And I didn't think about that going in, because I'm a fan of his horror novels.
I think I might enjoy this book more. I'm probably not going to read it again, but I think I might enjoy it more on a second read, one with adjusted expectations, and two, knowing what the book is.
Yeah.
I kind of got misled by the first part of the book, which had the scarier parts and to me had the better writing. And I enjoy thriller, but thriller for me is always tied with either like horror or science fiction or like something historical, like the Dan Brown books.
Yeah.
And the second half of this, like most of those other genres, their stories have been completed, and like the horror and sci-fi part of it is done, and the whole second half is just the thriller running from the cops part that I have very little interest in.
They tried to make a horror sandwich. The only problem is the horror at the end. The bread is super thin.
Yeah, it's really thin. It's like a big old thick slice of white bread that you like rip off a hunk on the beginning, and then it's the bottom piece of bread is the heel at the end of a store-bought loaf of wheat bread, like the tiny little heel.
Yeah, like I even thought the final confrontation with the outsider had a lot. You're making me want to call him the Watcher.
What? That's how I called him.
I thought that was there was a lot of tension in there.
I was actually fine with how everything played out with the outsider. Mm-hmm. Einstein got to confront him. You kind of had you were misled about if Einstein died or not.
Well, we'll get there.
Yeah. But it's just everything between when they leave Travis's house and go on the run up to that point where they finally confront the outsider, where I think that the book would have been more effective if we just kind of squeezed them down and kind of made that middle part the final confrontation, and you could have moved a little bit of the world building from the second half of the novel into the first half to make it a little longer. But
yeah,
and I know like a lot of this is just my preferences, and it's not actually like poorly written or anything. It's just what I want out of a book and in my opinion. But
yeah, no, I'm with you there.
Kiss me, fat boy.
Kiss me, fat boy.
That's all you.
I was surprised that the book wasn't sexless. I'm going to be honest. Most Dean Koontz books I read are pretty sexless. Like, you have people that are attracted to each other, but I wasn't expecting there to be like, hey, we're going to have a honeymoon scene, and I'm going to teach you how to orgasm.
I've read 5. 2 of them have sex, and the other 3 didn't. So the Bone Farm and this had sex in it.
Yeah, the Bone Farm really surprised me.
And there was really rape.
Yeah.
Not consensual sex.
Sexual assault and mistreatment of women.
Mm-hmm.
that was in there a decent amount.
Yep.
Not just with Nora, even. You had that one, mid-range mobster before he got to the actual mob boss to get permission to go get...
The Wire.
No, there was one in between that one. There was a dude who... oh, fuck, what was it? Was it The Wire?
He had the girl, and he, slapped her in the...
And asked him to come double team.
Yeah, that was The Wire.
That was also The Wire? Okay.
There were a couple different mob bosses, and they kind of blurred together.
But I'm sitting there, and I'm like, man, and then you just have Vince has this extreme sex complex where he thinks every woman is diseased.
Yeah.
And he's just, I just really want to kill a pregnant woman. I just really want to kill a baby.
Okay. I will say there was a small effective moment for me with Vince when he has this rant in the first half of the book about how he wants to kill a pregnant woman. And I didn't realize right away that when he got Nora in the car that she was pregnant. And there was a point where I remembered, oh.
Yeah, he just really wants to do that.
Yeah. So that was a little effective for me.
And he's sitting there like, oh, you let someone come in you, did you? I bet you're a whore.
You're a whore.
I can't do accents. I need to stop trying.
A whore.
You can do the accents.
A whore of Babylon.
I was honestly just kind of surprised at not just that there were sex in this book, but the variety of perspectives on sex.
I need to look at, all the books I've read from him and see, what years they were written and see if it's, his earlier books have sex and his later books don't, or if it's kind of all over the place, and see if there's a pattern for
I want to figure out the year he converted to Catholicism and read all the books before that and then a few of the books after. That's the one piece of Dean Koontz trivia I know is that he chose Catholicism.
Catholicism chooses you. Dean Koontz.
The power of Christ compels you! The power of Christ compels you!
The power of Christ compels you. Saint Francis.
Yeah.
That's the one who could talk to animals, right?
He had a affinity for animals. Mm-hmm. And so that's what they named the project after.
He's like a Catholic Dr. Dolittle.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. I just hate religion. God. The bigger one is God's relation to man and the responsibility of creation. It's the Frankenstein story, only people take responsibility.
Okay, I don't remember the original guy's name, but the original Dr. Dolittle, Eddie Murphy Dr. Dolittle, or Robert Downey Jr. Dr. Dolittle?
I haven't seen any of them other than Eddie Murphy.
Oh, okay. Never mind then.
Yeah, so Eddie Murphy wins by default.
Okay, that's fair. I haven't seen...
Eddie Murphy.
Actually, I haven't seen the Robert Downey Jr. one either. I've just seen the original and the Eddie Murphy one, so...
Well, whatever happened to Eddie Murphy?
He was just in a movie with Jonah Hill.
Really? Wow, yeah. That surprises me.
I think it's called You People. It's a comedy with Eddie Murphy and Jonah Hill.
I don't like to take Rotten Tomatoes scores.
Oh, I didn't even see it. Well,
at face value, but can we look?
Oh, yeah, sure. I actually got on there recently to look up Bambi Meets Godzilla.
What's it rated at?
Surprisingly low, 73%. But that was the audience score. There is no critical score.
It should be at least 100.
Yeah, I thought that there was a decent chance it would have 100.
Or at least, because people watching that should know what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
You People is 42% for critics, 38% for audience.
Ooh. I mean, but that doesn't mean it's not good.
I don't tend to listen to Rotten Tomatoes. I do think that sometimes you can get a general vibe for how people are feeling.
Yeah. I don't know. It's not. I'm not running out there to go watch it, but if Beck put it on, I would sit and try it.
Yeah. Every time I think of Eddie Murphy, I just think of Charlie Murphy. So.
Who's Charlie Murphy?
It's his brother.
What did he do? Or did he do anything?
He was on the Chappelle Show a few times.
Oh.
Rick James. He was friends with Rick James and had a bunch of stories. The only thing I know about Eddie Murphy is he was arrested for having a trans prostitute in his car back in the 80s.
Cool. My one, mature moment as a child was when I watched the premiere of the Chappelle Show and said, that's not for me.
Okay, for my 307th book, this couple is attacked by a lamp monster. Ooh, ooh.
You're not even trying anymore, are you? When can I have it?
Koontz and Kings.
Yeah, we are doing a Dean Koontz episode, so Koontz is good and King is bad. So, Daniel, what is your Koontz for Watchers?
The Outsider. I loved every time I got like little snippets of it. When they talked about like stuff that it did. The rip out the eye scene, its little den.
Mm-hmm.
The Mickey Mouse thing.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Dog dead. Dog dead.
Oh.
Yeah.
That was scary.
Yeah.
I've been debating the entire time about whether my Koontz would be The Outsider or Nora. And since you said The Outsider, I'll just go ahead and say Nora. I think of the human characters, she's the most relatable. She has the best story arc.
And she should have killed Vince.
She should have killed Vince. And she's like the only character that, you know, had like any surprises in her and had any like real growth in this story. So I'll say Nora. And I'll go ahead and tell you my king is that she didn't kill Vince. And Dean had to fake me out and make me think she did. Fuck you, Dean.
So, of course, we always put massive spoiler warnings, but here's another massive spoiler warning. Because I'm about to go on a rant for my king.
Go ahead. Which is bad. In this episode, the king is the bad one. This is the bad one.
Dean Koontz tricked me for about 2, maybe 3 minutes. When the Outsider grabbed Einstein and pulled him into a room. And then Travis goes in the room and just says the dog is dead. And Nora, one of them says that.
Nora said it's dead.
And
because he was like, call the vet. And she's like, he's dead. Einstein is dead.
And Travis screams at her. And I sat there and I was like, that is a stunningly brave choice that pulls the entire fucking story together. I bet you he's not dead. And god damn it, he couldn't do it. It would have made me retroactively believe that every single character was vulnerable. Because I was with you the whole way. I'm like, they aren't going to kill the dog, and they're not going to kill Nora, so maybe if I'm lucky, Travis dies.
Yeah.
Because I usually like at least one death, at least from a tertiary, like a good side character, to make people believe your main characters are at least vulnerable.
Yep.
And if the Outsider would have, and it was just so quick and brutal that it was like a dog getting hit by a car. It was so real that I knew it was too good to be true, because my jaw literally dropped when I heard it, and then it was taken away from me.
I believed it for a couple minutes.
Yeah.
And then I realized, and I'm like, no, it's not.
There's no way.
And I do think story-wise, it would have been better if the dog died. If you ask me in a vacuum, do you prefer it when the dog lives or the dog dies? I'm going to tell you, I prefer it when the dog lives. And I'm glad they had a nice little happy epilogue, and it had a very optimistic ending. That was very nice. So we're on rankings. I'll tell you, I rank this pretty low. I don't think it's poorly written, but I think it's every decision the book makes is a decision that I would not have preferred. I would have preferred it made a different decision. So it starts from a really, really high point and then just kind of goes down and goes down and goes down. I started on a real high horse thinking this is going to be his best book. This is awesome. And then by the end of it, I was just so done. I think that for me, this is, and I'm not counting Nothing But Black and Teeth and the Confederado, this is the first book we've read that I can say, I don't think I like that book. It's third from the bottom for me, above Nothing But Black and Teeth and the Confederado, and below Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter, and A Dowry of Blood.
It just wasn't for you.
Like I said, I don't think I'll read it again, but if I did read it again, I think I would like it more because I'd have adjusted expectations and I know what the book was about. And let me reemphasize, I don't think it's a bad book. I think it's a bad book for me. So I don't want anybody to feel bad for liking this. And I think that this book would be immensely more effective if I owned and loved a dog of my very own. I want to have a dog. My family situation does not allow me to have a dog. But if I did have my own puppy boy of my very own, I think I would have liked this book like maybe tenfold more.
Who wins in a fight, Cujo or Einstein?
Cujo.
Yeah, it's a way bigger dog and ready to kill.
Here's your list. Here's your novels. From It to Nothing But Black and Teeth. Where does this go?
I liked it a fair bit more than you, but it also was not... It's not going to rank amongst my favorite books. I liked Phantoms way more. And that's, again, like you were talking about personal preference. Fucking empty-ass towns scare the shit out of me way more than baboons.
And even, I actually think that, to me, baboons are personally more effective than empty towns. I didn't think that part of Phantoms was very scary at all.
Yeah.
But, like, my only real complaint within Phantoms is, like, the last bit of it. Up until that point, I think it's a really great read, and then it just kind of falls apart a little bit at the end.
Yeah.
Whereas this book, it's really the whole second half that drug it down for me. And that's why I think Phantoms is better. I think The Bone Farm is better. Surprise! Yeah. I will tell you, I liked Watchers more than the other two Dean Koontz books I read, though.
Let's see here. I'll have to get you to read Lightning. I didn't like it as much as Phantoms. I definitely didn't like it as much as Powers of Darkness. The Hellbound Heart is better.
Good Indians.
The Only Good Indians. That book I found... I was actually surprised how much I liked that book.
Mm-hmm. It was really good. Carmilla
is too sexy. I think I'm going to put it right below The Bone Farm.
Below The Bone Farm and above Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter.
I just really liked what he did in The Bone Farm with the journal.
Mm-hmm.
I think I liked characters like Nora more. I really liked The Outsider. But I thought that I enjoyed the creativity of The Bone Farm way more.
Yeah, and The Bone Farm is such a short and concise story where he doesn't allow himself to go off on these like random tangents. Yeah, that really... Yeah. I feel like if Watchers was like the size of like 2 Bone Farms, it'd probably be outstanding.
Yeah.
Maybe 3 Bone Farms.
It's all the best parts of his thriller writing.
Yeah.
It's pure tension. It's every final scene that he writes, just rolled into a single book.
Yeah.
So, I think that's where I've landed. Again, if this is your favorite book, I can see why.
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot to really love in this book. There's just things that personally didn't work for us.
Yeah. And again, if I had a dog of my very own, I think this book would just hit for me on a much more personal level. Okay, I think we have homework. Yep. You want to explain your homework?
Okay, so this book's about genetic engineering.
Mm-hmm.
The Outsider was a combination of several animals.
Yep.
Including just fiddling with baboon DNA by itself to like enhance its brain, and then give it more. And then they were giving it more lean muscle and an extended jaw. So I want us to design our own Outsider, but using no more than 3 animals.
And I imposed the rule on myself because I assumed you meant to not include humans.
Yes.
Okay.
But if you would have used humans, I would have been like, all right, you know what? You got around my rule.
I didn't.
Okay.
Because I felt like that would have been too easy. Okay, so for me, it has... whatever frog they reference in Jurassic Park, because it has the ability to reproduce asexually.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't remember.
Already terrifying.
Yeah. And 2, chameleons, so it can blend in with its environment. And 3, honey badgers, because honey badgers are the most vicious animal on the planet.
Ryan, you and I almost designed the exact same creature.
Oh boy.
Mine has the DNA of a frog to give it amphibian qualities. Also, a super powerful tongue to drag you in. A chameleon...
Or get you off.
To help it blend into its environment. Also, I picture the giant bug eyes so it can look all around. And a bear.
And a honey badger is basically a little bear.
Yeah, I chose a bear. So I'm picturing a giant webbed bug-eyed bear with a tongue that latches you and pulls you into its bear jaws.
And mine is like a smaller version of that, and I picture it more like a stealthy ninja that just rips you to pieces before you even know what's happening.
Yeah, I pictured mine more of a tank. Mm-hmm. You drop it in a town and go nuts, buddy.
Have fun. Okay, and our question for the listeners is, what animal would you gift with human-like intelligence other than a dog?
And why is it a cat?
Yeah.
And what is that cat's name?
I think it could only be cats. Because I think cats would be too lazy to do anything ambitious with that human intelligence.
I would either pick cats or crows. So
ooh, I don't know if I could. I can see like that being. How do you make the birds even scarier? Well, you give the crows human-like intelligence.
Yeah, they're my favorite bird.
And then for further reading, obviously Frankenstein. We talked about it a lot. There's a lot of parallels, and it's also a really good book. And also check out other works by Dean Koontz.
This is pretty standard for a lot of the stuff that he does.
Yeah, ones we particularly recommend: Phantom's Lightning, The Bone Farm.
I think you might actually love Lightning.
I'll try it. So you picked Phantoms, I picked The Bone Farm, you picked Watchers, so it's my turn to pick.
Yeah.
Should we just go ahead and say the next one you pick is going to be Lightning?
Yeah, that's probably going to be the next one I force on you.
So I'll pick. I'm not sure what mine is going to be.
We'll figure it out.
But I'll do some research. He only has about 300 books to choose from. I'm going to Google Dean Koontz books that are actually horror. And then Jurassic Park. Can you tell me why you included Jurassic Park? I think I know why. But
the genetic engineering, the playing God. Mm-hmm. You did it because you could. You didn't think about whether or not you should. A bunch of and have you read the book?
I've only read Congo.
Okay. The book has the way they characterize some of the people sort of similar to how some of the people like vocalize their opinions in Watchers.
Okay, cool.
So it even kind of reads sort of the same.
Yeah, it's always on my list. I think I own the audiobook on Audible, and I just haven't gotten to it yet.
It's actually I really want to read The Lost World. Every time I read a Michael Crichton book, I'm like, I need to read more, but then I take like a year-long hiatus.
No, I've only read Congo, but I loved it. Yeah, I thought it was great.
I've been meaning to read the Andromeda Strain for years. Maybe we'll do that on our anniversary when it's for The Stand some year.
Yeah. Oh, just real quick, since you mentioned The Stand, I'm trying to catch up with Star Wars in between all of our books.
Yeah.
And I'm finally caught up with canon. So I'm trying, and I'm 2 behind on the Essentials Legend Collection that I haven't already read. Mm-hmm. And the one I'm on now is the Krytos Trap, and it's Star Wars meets The Stand. It's about a pandemic a virus that was engineered by the Empire. It is really cool.
That sounds super cool.
Yeah, I really like it. Okay, so upcoming on the Horror of Babylon, next week we are going to be covering the film classic Watchers from 1988.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
All right, so thank you very much to our patrons, Abigail the First, Breaker of Chains, Mother of Dragons, and
Logan,
the Full Metal Patron. And be sure to visit 4 Horsemen Comics and Gaming at the Morgantown Mall in Morgantown, West Virginia, and at the Mall at Robinson in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And that, of course, is led by the General, Ronald, the Grampus of Christmas, because he is the best and the worst parts of Christmas, all wrapped up into one ball of bald classics. Oh, you remember at the end of an episode where I said something like, don't, and if he tries to get you in the back room, like, don't go back there with him, or something. Yeah, I didn't cut it out, and he did listen all the way to the ending and texted me. Next time you're in the store, I need to show you something in the back room. Wink, wink.
That's so great.
Yeah.
Do you think if Logan had a talking dog, it would be like, Logan, it hurts?
Like Wolverine?
No, I'm talking about the girl from Full Metal Alchemist.
Oh. Yeah.
Because it also has a talking dog. It just makes people sad.
Yeah. I haven't seen that since, like, I was a freshman in college. No, because Brotherhood.
If you ever want to make Carrie mad, send her that dog. It upsets her immensely.
I don't want to make Carrie mad. Thank you for reading and suggesting Watchers. Even though I wasn't, like, ended up not being a very big fan of the book, I'm glad I read it.
Yeah.
Because that's like for me, that's like a notch in my like Dean Koontz modern horror belt.
Yeah, it is a notch in the modern Dean Koontz belts.
Yes. Is he a black belt? He's probably a yellow belt.
I guess it depends on if we're going by like what we personally enjoy or how many books he has published. He did used to get paid $25 million a year to write.
I was going based on fighting skill.
Oh.
I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I was talking about karate, punches and kicks, and, you know. I know you're into kung fu. You don't know anything about karate, so we'll move on. All right. Yeah, thank you for reading Watchers and recording with me.
You're welcome, Ryan.
Stay tuned for our socials and stay scary.
Stay scary, everyone. I love you.
And now for the obligatory socials. Please like, share and subscribe. Follow Daniel at DStarSick on Twitter. Follow Ryan at Darth Damio on the Bluebird app. You can find the podcast on Twitter at HorrorPod69. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Slasher and Goodreads. Become part of the Disturbed community by asking for the Facebook group and Discord links. Send dick pics to the Horror of Babylon podcast at gmail.com. Support the show at patreon.com/the Horror of Babylon. In closing, you can let your friends know that The Horror of Babylon is available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible and all other major podcast apps. Stay scary.